Hello. Right, so we're going to put some hands and feet on this here character and bump along with a few issues along the way and a few extra little tips and tricks to make things go a bit faster or to fix up things that might go a bit astray in the process. Okay, so I've got show off on, so you'll see the keys on the keyboard and the mouse buttons I'm clicking. The only thing it doesn't show on the mouse is the use of the scroll wheel for scrolling purposes. So when I zoom in, you won't see anything going on there. Otherwise, you can see what I'm doing via this window here. Okay, so I'm going to select my object, which is that one. And the first thing to note is I'm going to do selection by drag, mostly. I've got, next thing then is world X, so I'm using the position of the object in the world as the line of symmetry. That means, as I orbit round here, you can see the black line of the center of world space going through the middle of my character. Okay, and if there was a vertical line, it would be going down somewhere down there probably, because that was a center line as well. Oh no, I used two, only two subdivs. So yeah, that's probably a center line that way in that axis. But it's the line that goes round the center and creates a sort of cross section as we look at the left or right side. That is the axis of that center. I'm going to put a view cube on for one important reason, maybe two actually. Demonstration wise, it makes things a bit clearer, but also occasionally for me I get a bit disoriented, so I like my heads up display to help with that, and the view cube has this handy legend front. Now if you've got your view cube up and you're facing front and your character is not facing front, or maybe you're seeing one of your reference planes, one of your image planes with possibly facing in the wrong direction from left to right or right to left when it should be the other way around. Doesn't matter until just before you do the rig. So once you've finished creating and placing the mesh surface and edges and vertices, etc., you want to then rotate the object so that the character is facing the front, because the rig relies on that relationship, and also anything you get from other apps or processes like mocap data, that will also be relying on a defined front, which is usually the x-axis working as a side-to-side thing. So the front axis can sometimes be a y, and in the case of Maya it's a z. But anything to convert, to make the axis conversion, can be done in the export routine, but what you should do is make sure that your figure is facing its front to the front view. Right, so let's crack on. So what I did last thing, or rather before extruding the legs, I angled these polys here to make the legs go off at a bit of a taper. It's important to have some gap between the legs to allow the rigging process to kind of clearly identify what is going to be pinned to the right thigh bone and what's going to be pinned to the left thigh bone. And I was talking about the right and left of the character, not as we stare at it. Okay, so but that has meant that at the bottom of the leg so far is this angle of polys here, and we really want those to be flat. Certainly when we extrude down to the floor being flat, we want the shoe to be at no particular angle, sort of flat on the floor. So we might as well do that now rather than do it later when there's more verts on the foot and it's not quite so easy to what's the word? Select is the word. It's not easy to select them all. So I'm going to just bring this view up a little bit close so that when I when I've done this, you'll be able to see that these are kind of flattened exactly to the grid axis rather than their own merry way. Okay, so I'm in drag mode, which means if I go to face selection, and there are those. Now, when you use the move, rotate or scale tools down here, so here comes the move tool, W on the keyboard. So now it's showing me what is really a kind of average of the coordinates of all the vertices. So it kind of doesn't really mean anything for any particular one of this polys that I've got selected. But the key thing is, if you look at the the y-axis, which is the up-down axis, the number for that is likely to be kind of somewhere in the middle between this extreme here and that extreme there. So to make a suitable number to level up at is probably this one. I'm going to select it and do, look in here, Control C, which copies that number. And then you go up to your modelling set of tools, and you need a little tiny little thing which just looks like a divider between sets, but actually it's a show hide for the select field, which is this. Okay, so what's here is input fields for you to fix a number for a particular selected component or sub-object. So components are vertices, edges and faces or polygons. Okay, so if I paste in, that number that I just nicked from the move settings, which I can't do it by right clicking, I'd have to do straight Control V, put that number in there and tap, and if I zoom in here, it's done as I hope it would, which is to level out these polygons here, which is quite good. If I'd wanted to do it for vertices, I didn't realise it worked so well on polys actually. I'd usually do it using the vertex. So I would want to convert the poly selection here to the vertices that go to make up those polygons, joined by edges obviously. Then I hold Control down and then click on vertex, and then it converts to vertex mode, and we can see the vertices ready selected here in yellow. As it goes, I do want to just fix this profile partly. So a couple of things wrong. The kind of front edge of the leg is a bit angled. I want to fix it so that when I extrude down for the shoe, we get a kind of better shape all over. So just select that one and pull it out and forwards a bit, and then there's this corner here. It doesn't really matter which side you work on in Symmetry, because it's just symmetry. You know, what you do on one bit is going to be processed as the same way as the other side is, and mirrored, which is important to note. There's a slightly sharp edge going down here, so if I go to edge mode, let's try right click, the old right click, and select it that way, so your cursor doesn't have to stray so far from what you're working on if you do the right click. I tend not to do it, just I suppose habit, and kind of making it really clear what component I'm using at the time. But it's a good habit for you to get into, certainly, to keep your cursor in the area of the model as much as you can. Good. So back to polygons, which are still selected, thankfully. Extrude, and I'm just going to zoom out a bit in this viewport, so that when I do the extrude, it's exactly to bottom of my reference image. Yes, I know my reference image isn't quite to the edge of the image plane as it should be. But you can do better than that, I'm sure. Okay, so I'm going to Q to get rid of the extrude, which I'm happy with. Drag over to select those two, extrude again. You can do extrudes by dragging on this and sort of get it right by eye. I'm demonstrating using click down on the middle mouse and drag one way or the other on the button, sort of taking note of the numbers I'm getting in there, just as kind of scalar things really. I'm not noting it anywhere other than sort of mentally. Sometimes I'm kind of reminded after the fact rather than being able to always recall. Anyway, that's just me. So there we go. So I've added another section in there which can be a sort of toe area. So Q again and drag over the top, W for move, drop that down, and then go to edge mode and just sort of it's not really sculpting, but it's getting it a little bit closer to the next phase of detail or complexity that it's going to end up with. And the idea with the feet is to get them so they look like they're pointing directly forwards. Remember, any kind of bit of character that you want to build into this, where you say, oh, my character's feet point inwards, that's okay, and you can solve that through either mocap or animation. If you're acting the mocap, then you want to point your feet inwards slightly, but the demands of the rigging process mean that you kind of very much consider your character's bits in an orthographic, say, by straight down an axis. So arms pointing straight out to the sides, feet pointing straight forwards, legs kind of as straight down as they can be, but allowing differentiation between left and right leg for rigging purposes, knowing which vertex is going down to which leg. So if the legs are quite close together, for instance, vertex here could get accidentally kind of caught by some hand rigging or automated rigging on the wrong leg and kind of make the whole model unnecessarily asymmetrical. Back to polygon mode, face mode, and I want to move probably both of those over. I'm just going to shift in that one if I can. Just push it out a bit. Now this thing's quite useful. Select grow. Oh, it's the angle bracket for that. So if I can remember that, I might use that more. And just get it so the feet are pointed straight forwards, but the outside of the foot tapers outwards, sort of looks like it's going off slightly to an angle. And this is more just like the way feet are, really. I guess you'd minimize that effect if you wanted the toes to point inwards and, the kind of less natural, but more suitable for the destination of your character. Actually, I want vertex. I'm just going to pull that vertex down a bit, not too much, to slightly better sort of work like or look like a shoe. Not brilliant, but it's okay as a basis. Okay, so we'll say that's feet done for now. We're going to persist with this sort of pretty low polygon structure, but for saying that, up to this point, apart from just these two polys here and the two around the back, of course, everywhere else is quads. If we're going to fix this up, actually I could fix this up pretty much straight away. Okay, so we want these to be quads. Then I'll go for multi-cut, and hold Control down, and it maps all the way around there, and then I join it up to there like that, snap off, and now that's a quad, that's a quad. That's still a triangle, but the difference between this triangle and a quad is really the addition of a vertex. It might still look like a triangle, but it would have a quad just by adding a vertex there, and then it would subdivide fine. So the simple way to add a vertex is probably just to go to multi-cut, and that's interesting, because I'm in Symmetry, it wants to kind of double up. Okay, oh, I can see a slice tool. Is that's part of the multi-cut thing. So slice tool, ignore back faces, delete faces, extract faces, slice along plane, YZ. So there's a plane which is going from front to back, that's along the Z axis, so it must be XY. So it probably slices all the way through, so I'm not going to cut, insert, edge loop tool. I'm just going to see if I can just start it but not do anything more than a vertex. So yeah, I'd have to cut across the middle there if I was going to make that into a quad. So I'm not going to do that this time. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, to be fair, if I do multi-cut right on the centre line. The fact of that being a triangle, it probably means that all I need to do is put a multi-cut or two going towards it and minimize it, and then where its placement would end up being, by pushing it kind of under the groin, it would never get seen anyway. So the fact that multi-cuts wouldn't go all the way through it wouldn't be an issue, because it would be so small and hidden away that it'd make no difference. Okay, so it's easy enough to fix non-quads, and there'll be plenty of geometry creation possibilities in the next capture which I do, which will be about creating the head vertices, sorry. What do I want? One there, like that, and then one coming up from there to there. So this area obviously is going to become more buttocks if there's any chance of this area being on the outside of the model, but actually I'm going to build a jacket that conveniently covers over this, largely, although there's probably going to be a bum flap, but there's not going to be that much happening on the model at this specific point. Okay, so that's that for now. I'll get back to that at some later point in a video. So now let's move on to the hands. So if the character was going to have bare arms, then I would shrink this down somewhat and make it an oval shape, like a sort of flat oval. But because this is actually a cuff of a business suit, then it's not too bad, the shape it is. They're kind of going towards a circle. So I'm going to leave that pretty much and then create the wrist that projects out of it. So there's going to be a multi-stage extrude for that to happen. So if I drag select over these, just check here, 8 faces, that's for this side, for the other side. Extrude, and I'm just going to add no thickness and an offset of an inset of 0.6, something like 0.6, 0.5, yeah, which looks a bit thick for the fabric on a suit, even though the fabric will be folded over to and stitched back to form the body of the cuff. What I'm doing now is creating the inset, so the kind of concavity, the pushback into the depth, and then I need another extrude, which has no thickness. I got a bit ahead of myself then, so I'll zero that out. Oh, by the way, you can use the tab key to go from field to field, and then just type the number in for the distance that you want. So there's that one. There's probably a keyboard combo to get the extrude dialog up. Mesh tools. Append to polygon connect. No, those. Edit mesh. Extrude. Control and E. There we go. So that's actually quite useful because when you've done in one extrude, you quite often want to do another. So the only difference, I've gone to another extrude, and the offset just went back to 0 to signify that it's a new extrude operation. So you do have to sort of keep an eye on stuff like that. Now, so I want to scale that down, top to bottom, just a shade, and then probably move that whole thing out. I kind of ended an extrude that ended up with no thickness, but this next operation is kind of, this move is kind of an equivalent to that. So no worries there. That's a fairly thick wrist. I'm just kind of looking at my own hand. There's kind of no real difference between the hand thickness and the wrist thickness. So I want to change this and make it kind of better for a hand shape. So it's not going to be accurate in terms of a person quite so much, but it's just going to kind of do the job. Okay, Control E, extrude, and this one wants to be a thickness a bit like that, and a 2 divisions. I'm just going to have a look in the other view, see where I've got to. Yeah, okay, that's good. Now I'm going to do some reshaping, just because I'm thinking it's going to be a hand, and it's going to need to match up to a certain amount of what's going to be the fingers. It needs to be kind of better suited to as a launch pad for the fingers. So Q to clear the extrude, R, scale it down top to bottom. Oh, now it's having one of its moments. Let's just see if there's something stuck in here. There is. So occasionally you get this where something you want to do kind of using the convenient set of processes or tools doesn't work in the way that it seems to suggest it should. If I drag select these again, let's try that now. Now it's working fine. When you're starting out in software, you can't be sure that it's the software or you. But things like that, I think, occasionally are software. And that's the excuse I'm going to use. Just place that back there. I've done some moves then, which so I did an extrude then, so that might have been an accidental extrude. In move mode, you may find that if I'm holding shift key down, there we go, so like it's doing an extrude when you think you're trying to do a move. So it's kind of, there is a way somewhere in the menu I can turn that ability off, but just watch out for it. You might see a little ghost of the word extrude by your cursor because you're accidentally touching the shift key at the same time. So anyway, I'm going to get rid of this node, so delete node. If I didn't make it plain, by the way, the channel box is that icon there. Sometimes it's stuck in this panel here, but I figure there's a bit of space here that's not really used, so I might as well leave it open there. And it's kind of adding into this inputs list with everything you do. I'm going to get rid of that tweak as well. Have a look down there. Well, it's still a bit off, isn't it? Something's gone awry somewhere. So, although it might have looked okay, there was something revealed by that action that wouldn't work as expected. So sometimes it's safer just to go back and make sure. So I think I've gone past the disaster area. So I'm going to do the Control E, extrude, and inset that, so which is called offset. About yay much. Control E again, and then bring that out. Just proud of the cuff. I don't think I need or want any taper. But I'm going to now scale it down, top to bottom, make it a little bit more wristy. I think I'm just going to modify the profile as well, so a bit of vertex movement, so that one. And just make it so I don't accidentally hit one that's slightly out of reach, or indeed extrude a vertex, which is possible, and sometimes it's a good way of adding a new bit of grown structure, but it tends to be quite pointy because it's a single vertex, or not kind of whole polys anymore. So that's kind of like it started snapping to a particular grid item or some other sort of constraint. I'll just undo that and see if I can, yeah. That's the great thing about, although it's not very good in terms of a part of the object or part of the model, it's a great thing about flat sides is you easily spot an artifact that tells you something's got thrown out of whack. Okay, so back to polys, and that's still selected, so it's extrude time, Control E. This is going to be the length of the hand again, and just expand it a bit, and then I'm going to flatten it down with the scale down from the top. And then now I'm going to start dividing it for fingers. Before I do, I'm going to multi-cut just around here. I could have done that as a division in the extrude, but if I do it around about there. Okay, now back to poly selection, which is interesting. I'm in face mode, polygon foot mode, but it wants to still offering me multi-cuts. There we go. So Q to make sure I'm picking up. Select those 4. Now I've selected 4. I've lost symmetry somewhere along the way. And there it was. So if I retract back again. Poly split. So maybe that's where it happened. Oh no, the poly split was just a multi-cut. So you might be wondering what's the difference between undo and delete node. Well, delete node is an undoable thing, so they might seem very close, but yeah, you can actually use them in combination with one another. So nodes include operations up to the point of, but not including selection, whereas selection is an undoable thing. So if I've got those 4 faces selected, that suggests that symmetry's not working at this point. So just going to ring select those, and that's gone back to 8, so I should probably be able to work quickly from here. So something like that. Oh. I'm just going through the undos, and you see that it's rebuilding the hand back out, but I need to go back. Oh yeah, I can see there. So maybe here we've got 8 faces selected. Let's try that. Okay, so there's an extrude here, which is the top thing in the inputs. Has it got any offset? None yet, so let's add that in here. Something like 0.7. There we go. Okay, so I should expect to see this round at the other end. and then thickness. The order of the properties in Extrude here is different to how it is in the floating dialogue. Anyway, so we're going to send it back, what, 3 centimetres? 4 centimetres. Which is outwards, and we want to go inwards. So obviously it's -4. Okay, now time for another extrude, and this is no thickness but offset inset. Another extrude, which is outwards, a bit of expansion, and let's just check we're growing yeah, the wrist is growing fine at the other end. Okay, so sometimes you just need to step backwards and undo till the selection starts to be obviously duplicating. Okay, so another extrude outwards about yay far. I can see it developing this in this view, so I know I'm kind of roughly right. A bit of offset. And then let's go to scale. So R and scale it flat. Move a couple of or 4 verts. So that, can I do that to that? Oh, good. Somehow my gizmo's gone small, which sounded a bit like a euphemism for something. 2, which is 4 there and 4 the other side, which I'm just feeling paranoid now. I'm going to check. Yep, I can just see them there, squinty. Okay, and then pick up this one, that, and then move the middle one to even that out a bit. Okay, so now I need to multi-cut here to make fingers, or finger separation. Remembering to snap off. Okay, and finish with multi-cuts. I'll turn that off. Q works just as well. Yep, that's looking good. I think that the proportion of those isn't brilliant, but all right, I'll just fix it. So you can work on either side, doesn't really matter. And I want that one to be just a little bit smallest, but I'm not really fussed about the rest of it, to be fair. Okay, so then I'm going to do some edge beveling, which I can kind of do all at the same time. When I say all, kind of these 3 pairs of edges I'm going to do at the same time. So bevel, bring the amount down, that's lovely. Just a little gap so that when they extrude they're not kind of touching each other. Now if you want the fingers to extrude and be kind of diverging slightly, so the fingers just slightly spreading out in the same angle as the legs are spreading out, more or less, you know, then you can angle the base polys so that they're already kind of targeting it, the base faces, so that they're already targeting a divergence of the fingers. But I'm not going to spend time with that. You know, probably wasted a bit too much already. So I'm just going to do a straightforward extrude, And I'm sort of not going to fuss up too much about the varying lengths of the fingers as well. I'm not replicating that. So drag down there, hold shift down that pair, and that pair, and then we can do extrude and do them all at the same time. Put a bit of taper on, like that. They're a bit too tall, but it's okay. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to actually extend. Now that's interesting. See, it already looks like it wants me to make some adjustment to this, like it's decided it's a new extrude, which is okay, but I thought I'd just do one extrude and add 2 divisions. So in fact I think I'm going to go, there we go. So Control Y to redo and do that extrude again and get it right this time. So it's kind of 2/3 of the fingers. Add a division and taper it. Okay, and then to do the last joint in the finger. Now when there's no expectation, like from mocap, and there we go with the wacky behavior again. So I was just thinking, just rotate these polys at the end, and just to make the fingertips just kind of dip down a bit, because when you're making a T-pose, if your fingers are just ever so slightly loose, there's no kind of problem as long as you keep it gentle, but just that little addition makes it look slightly more natural, so that when the character is kind of at rest, it's got its rig in it, its arms might be outstretched and it look kind of very very tense, but so that you don't always kind of readjust the hand or the fingers position to have them ever so slightly looking, proceeding downwards rather than straight across. But then that's kind of a little bit of work you don't have to do to enforce the apparent natural look of the hand. Okay, so I'm going to add a multi-cut going around the hand, and you can see that when I'm trying to do this multi-cut going around the hand, that the multi-cut doesn't want to go over here, and the reason for that is because we put this join between the fingers here. That's not a quad now, so the multi-cut can't get over it. So to remake quads isn't difficult, but it's sort of it's a hand-driven process. So I've got this edge loop here that I can join up to. So if I join up to there like that, now I'm snapping off, join it from here to there like that. And then join up from here to there, and then to there, and I've got a triangle. I've just kind of captured another triangle there. So if I was to mirror this structure here, then I could end up with another triangle here, and then that would actually be a quad if I remove that edge there. So that's how I'd get out of GL3 with that one. That looks like a triangle, but it's a quad, so because it's got a vertex there. So that's kind of fixed. So if I just mirrored the structure, so first of all I multi-cutted up the side of the hand, then I took the next joint to go from side here to the new multi-cut, then from here up to a line then plotted across, so it would join up here, and then into this corner here, and that would give me two triangles, which then either become a quad or just get left because they're already actually essentially a quad, but with made out of two triangles. And secretly, that's all what all quads are. All quads are two triangles put together on the longest edge. Okay, so the thing to do next is the thumb, and that's the last thing in this. Okay, so because I did this multi-cut here, we need roughly 4 polys. Usually kind of 4 polys is fine to start the thumb base off. So drag over those. If I scale them from front to back, then they should go a little bit flatter, which means when I start extruding outwards, it's a little bit more, I don't know, a better constructed base, I guess. And if I sort of rotate as well, then the thumb starts to aim downwards. Now if you look at your own thumb, you'll see it kind of does that. It sort of protrudes slightly downwards off the side of your hand. So extrude, give it some thickness. This will need to be offset downwards quite a bit. I'm going to scale it in this axis. If you've already rotated it and then you scale it, you kind of need to do it 2 axes at once. It starts to be hard to predict. Move it around here, rotate it a bit, and that could actually scale up a bit. I think I took that a bit far. I don't know, if I try circularizing, this will help. And of course, these joints on the finger as well, if you select all these loops and do circularize, you're highly likely to get a much better look and a more kind of consistent with finger type of appearance. Okay, and if you want to circularize, it's under Mesh Tools, Edit Mesh, Circularize. Sometimes it twists and it kind of appears to have rotated somewhat, but in this occasion it's done quite nicely. If, however, I could sort of just rotate it round a bit, then I'm going to get a thumbnail. I think I've taken it the wrong way. I want to go that way a bit, and that way a bit. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so probably ready for another extrude. Out that way, a little bit more taper down, not that much really, and spin the end a bit, extrude again. This one I'm going to do 2 divisions. And just have a look at the plan view. It's kind of skinnier than the other fingers, but if I was to do circularize, I think these would start to look then a bit skinnier too. So you can see now that this bit would be the thumbnail. So these 2 polys here, would be thumbnail, more or less, and some shaping would help. but the essence of making it is what's been demonstrating. And I'll just see if I can do circularize on a couple of these fingers. So double click for a ring, or for a loop, sorry, shift, double click to add in. I don't know if this will, no, see the end of the fingers, because it's got these sort of junctions here, it doesn't quite know which one to go down, so it doesn't really see them as a convenient double click. So to get those, maybe convert them from polys and then exclude this one from the selection. That will get you all the edges. Okay, let's try edit mesh circularize anyway. Yeah, much better. So if I could do these and circularize those, edit mesh circularize, yeah, much better. See, so those can be done. Try them as a combined edit mesh circularize. Yeah, pretty good. Has it worked the same on the other end? And it's just slimmed the fingers down a bit, and they don't look kind of so out of whack with the alright, so I did something somewhere along the way. I don't want to do any normal offsetting, so zero that. Somewhere along the way I probably hit a bad. That's not too bad. That one's a little bit screwy. So if I add those two in and try circularizing. Wrong one. It's all there still, theoretically. So in the channel box I can get, there we go, visibility. Off. Yeah, that works. Okay, so I'm just getting back to my object and attempting to find out what's been going on with it. So there's something got split up somewhere along in one of the operations. Yeah, something to do with, I bet it's something to do with the intersection there. And you wrote up. So these polys, get them to copy that into the, oh no, it's not that one, it's the x-axis, isn't it? So I want the x-axis make that one live, copy that in there, gone through and turned up the other side. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so edit mesh, circularize. That's okay, I think. Still a bit messed up there, but it wouldn't be too difficult to chop off the bad polys and then just grow some more with symmetry off. And that may be a good place to start the non-symmetry of your object. Okay, so although it might look like symmetry is broken, if I do something that has to happen sort of equally or across the symmetry, like for instance grow a head, as you can see there, that's fine and that's working okay. Okay, so even though it's kind of broken at the hand point, there's still no reason why you can't just carry on with the rest of symmetry. And if I wanted to multi-cut across the whole figure, that still works fine. So it's not like symmetry's kind of completely broken, it's just little areas where symmetry has not been continuous. Okay, so I'm going to make that just to sort of undo the extrude there, redo that selection and extrude some blocks for a neck. And at this point I'm not thinking about a really sort of realistic or naturalistic looking figure, but it may well become one, and this doesn't mean that because it's not particularly done in a realistic or naturalistic way now that it can't become one. It's a kind of versatile base structure, and then I want to make another extrude of 2 up to the top like that, and add a division in, and that is the head done. Okay, so when I say done, obviously it needs a massive amount of work. What I'm going to do next time is completely reconstruct really the front half of the head, because it has very little on it so far that will allow us to create the correct topology for an animatable face. So even if you're not animating it, there's no reason why you shouldn't consider the creation of animatable features over the topology to allow it to be done by someone else, or even just to have as a sort of base mesh from which you can then generate alternatives. Because most humanoid characters have many of the features that are already built into this, there's loads of stuff that you can do to take this onwards to make it a variety of different humanoid type characters, be they quite naturalistic looking or quite cartoony or kind of fantasy based, as well as many other sort of directions you can take it in terms of fictional fantasy hybrid species, etc. Okay, so that's all for now. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll do some more of this in not too long. Okay, thank you.